What if I told you that your campaign doesn't need any more monsters, any more magic, or even any more maps to make it feel alive? What it may need is more factions. Welcome back to the Bearded Nerd Podcast, your source for storytelling tools, world building wisdom, and all things tabletop. I'm Brian, longtime GM and world builder, and today we're diving into one of the easiest ways to add drama, tension, and depth to your campaign, and that's factions. These aren't just groups in the background. Factions are living parts of your world. They make decisions, influence politics, start wars, offer quests to the player characters, and react to what your players do. If you want your world to feel alive, this is how you do it. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. What are factions really? In a simple way, factions are groups of people with influence and purpose. That's pretty much it. These can be noble houses, cults, trade syndicates, rebel cells, magical orders, and even mercenary bands. All these can be considered a faction, and they don't need to be complicated. They just need a goal, a method, and a physical or tangible or just a visible face to the organization. When I'm creating a faction, I have a bit of a checklist. I write down what they want, what they're willing to do to get it, and how visible they are in the world. For example, if there is a mercenary faction or a mercenary guild, what do they want? Well, they probably want to go to war and get paid for it. And what are they willing to do to get that goal or to achieve that goal? Well, they're willing to sacrifice whoever wants to go to war, essentially, right? And then how visible are they? Well, maybe they advertise it because the more wars, the more battles, the more quests they go on, the more money they garner, and the more reputable they become, and the more they get paid, and so on and so forth. So that is a quick checklist that I like to have, right? Because it focuses on all those facets, what their goal is, their methodology, and then how visible they are to the public and to the world at large. If your players feel like they're walking into a city where there's different forces that are pushing and pulling behind the scenes, that's when the world becomes more than just a backdrop. It actually becomes a character within itself. Hence the reason factions are really important for storytelling. Factions let your world move with or without the players. I've mentioned it before in other episodes, but they add 4 different factors that make the world feel alive. That is tension, reactiveness, storyline, and they act as a repeatable quest giver. Let me explain. There will always be groups that have opposing goals. These factions are going to cause tension just by merely existing. The Merchant Guild will always be opposed to pirates who loot, plunder, and steal their goods and their wares. And because of this, each faction will have a goal. That trickles down to the players. Every player and every party will have goals that they have themselves created in their writing process and in the playing, but the actions of the players then cause the factions to react. If the party decides to be in favor of the Merchant Guild, then those pirates are going to focus on taking down the players. But vice versa, if the players decide to band with the pirates, then that Merchant Guild may send bounty hunters to take down the player characters. They create reactiveness or reactions from the player actions. which then trickles down even further and creates really cool storylines. These storylines don't feel scripted because they're based upon the reactions that the players took. And let me even break it down further. The reactions based upon the player actions caused a storyline to emerge that feels unscripted. It's natural, it's organic, and that will make your players feel so immersed and almost baptized in the world. It's one of the best feelings as a game master. But here's an even better component. They become repeatable quest givers. That guild or faction that they've built trust with, that guild's always going to give them something to do. You're going to build trust with them, which then you're going to build a reputation with them, or even a rivalry with that other faction. But the rivalries, the reputation, the trust, everything like that produces quests. So when you as a game master are just really not knowing where to go in the story for whatever reason, you can create, generate, whatever term you want to use, a quest from that faction to be given to the players, and boom, you have a session. It's really great. It really knocks multiple birds from the sky with one rock, so to speak. I personally love it. And let's dive into this. Let's explore it a little bit further. Let's say the players attack a slaver outpost, and a rival faction thanks them for taking out that outpost. But then the players find out that they are rivals. And you may say, Brian, well, that's confusing. Here's where the storyline comes in. The rival faction was another slaver that the players didn't know. They pretended to be this kind of liberation force or this kind of, merchant company. But in reality, they were rivals to that slaver faction. And because the players decided to take down that outpost, that faction thanks them, gives them gold, gives them all these cool things. And the players then find out that they're actually pretty bad too, which then creates a storyline, creates a, wait a minute, maybe we can kind of sneak into their upper rankings and then take them down from within. There's a lot to do there, but you may be thinking to yourself, well, how do I build a faction? Let me give you some tips that have helped me build factions in about 3 to 5 minutes. Here is essentially the quick and dirty of it. I first and foremost come up with a name. It could be cool, it could be evocative, depends, it doesn't matter, whatever fits your world. Second, I have a goal. What does that faction want? What do they need? What do they desire? But what do they want? Number 3, what's their methodology? How do they act? What are they willing to do to obtain that goal? And then again, the face, right? Is there a character who would represent them? So let's come up with this together. I want to create a kind of merchant guild that has a lot of power and sway over people. So let's call it the Gilded Chain, right? Because they have a chain of different businesses and structures that keep them in power. And their goal is power. So they're going to obtain it by controlling the ports, land routes to the different kingdoms that are connected. But also they will utilize pirates and mercenaries to create chaos. They will ensue economic sabotage. And then they will charm diplomats and others to basically gain favor. Now, the face of this organization or faction would be a noble. Let's say they are female. So therefore, we don't even have to say whether it's a duchess or anything. Let's call her Lady Bella. Very high society lady of influence. Her husband, or maybe her widow was a merchant of fame, repute, so to speak. And she has dirt on everyone based upon her dealings in society, but also from her husband's ledger. And we don't know why she's a widow, but she's a widow. So there's another little side story that you can tell. But right then, in these last couple of minutes, we created a faction. We created something that we can kind of work with. And now it's time to bring it into our game. So there's 3 ways that I recommend bringing the faction into your game. Number 1, make them reactive. If a player insults the faction leader, well, next session, that town guard or whoever's faithful to the faction leader is going to be less helpful towards the players. Maybe the tavern owner who was really friendly towards them, the next morning when they find out, or the next day when they find out that the players have insulted them, they're going to say, hey, listen, you guys were cool, but I'm just going to serve you ale and give you a room, and then I'm done dealing with you, right? So you can do something like that. If the players help the rival faction, then the rival grows stronger, and the other faction either chases down the players, or they're too weak and they can't do anything, and then the players see almost the collateral damage, so to speak, from that choice. It's a really great visual, and it makes them realize, oh, there's a lot at stake here. But second, using the tension as a quest fuel, or as quest fuel. So let's say the Sun Church has outlawed necromancy. Well, maybe the players assist with that and assist with taking those people who are practicing necromancy and jailing them. Maybe Lady Bella from the Gilded Chain is hiring adventurers to protect cargo carts. Well, now there's a guild quest, and now you have something that your players can do. Lastly, give them, the players, a stake in the actual faction, in the adventure itself. So maybe the faction hands out titles or castles or things like that. You could do that. Obviously, there's XP involved, but maybe there's background information. Maybe there are feats that the players can obtain, right? So part of downtime activities is that the players can learn something and gain a feat back for that. Maybe players can gain titles. Maybe they can gain land and castles. But maybe they gain answers to questions from their backstory. Maybe now you're bringing up their backstory and linking it to the actual, player. So those 3 ways, making them reactive, giving tension, or rather using the tension for quest fuel, and then giving those players a stake, is really going to be a great way to bring those factions into your game. But this sounds kind of difficult. So let me explain how I make it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself. You really only need 3 active factions at a time. 1 with power, 1 in opposition of that power, and 1 that's neutral. The first one is going to be a power strong faction. This could be nobility, this could be clergy. It depends on your game, but one's going to have a lot of power and sway and influence. Think of the Empire in Star Wars. 1 is going to be in opposition. Again, think of the Rebels in Star Wars. That was another faction. They were fighting the Empire. And then 1 is neutral. Maybe your party is neutral. Maybe these are merchants. Maybe it's a mysterious third party. In the case of Star Wars, well, there were a couple of neutral parties. But the whole point is there's 3 factions. 1 with power, 1 in opposition, and 1 neutral. And maybe that neutral one kind of helps both sides out. But by sticking to this 3-faction guide, you will save yourself a lot of headaches. And we've been inundated so much with this in movies and media, it's really easy to replicate. So stick with a 3-faction system for right now, and you will have a better time. You don't need to have 1,000 different factions. Just have 3 strong. And what I mean by strong, I mean world building strong. Put a lot of flavor in those factions, but just have 3 of them and focus on that. And I assure you that your world will feel even more alive. It will have dramatic aspects and tension in the storyline. And more importantly, it will help your players immerse themselves even more. Factions are the veins in your world. They carry influence, tension, and motion. When you build factions with purpose, your players start thinking beyond just, quote, killing a monster, right? They start navigating relationships, alliances, and betrayals. And that is where the real storytelling begins. Thanks for tuning in to the Bearded Nerd Podcast, your source for storytelling tools, world building wisdom, and all things tabletop. If this episode helped you out, share it with your group, or check out my Patreon for downloadable faction trackers, NPC profiles, and world building templates to drop right into your game. Much love, and keep gaming.